camino para...
Is there any other alternative to the horrors caused by neoliberalism? When President Chavez was elected, you know he was elected in 1998, Tony Blair was Prime Minister in England, and he talked about a third way, a kind of capitalism with human face. Initially, Chavez thought that this might be the path for Venezuela to take: improve capitalism, make it more human. But what happened? When he decreed some laws so he could deal with the issue of agricultural property, hydrocarbons, energy, etc., just the minimum he needed to regulate to be able to advance a little, the Venezuelan oligarchy immediately reacted. They realized the laws might be interfere in their privilege, and they rebelled. It was not a proletarian insurrection. It was an insurrection of the Venezuelan oligarchy. At the end of 2001, when those laws were decreed, they began to prepare the coup d'etat, which in April 2002 removed the president from power for less than 48 hours. Chavez almost disappears as the head of the government. As well, he suffered from limitation of his inherited state apparatus. He realized how difficult it is to deal with the health, housing, and educational problems with this inherited state. He realized that the third way is not the best way for Venezuela, and began to think about socialism.
Y entonces empieza a buscar un nuevo camino, a buscar, ya no era la tercera vía, entonces ahí es donde empieza a pensar en el socialismo nuevamente. Y de hecho, ¿cuándo habla de socialismo por primera vez?
And in fact, when does Chavez speak of socialism for the first time? It was in the closing session of a meeting of artists and intellectuals in defense of humanity in December of 2004. I was there as a guest and was one of the people who were surprised when Chavez said that it was necessary to re-examine the history of socialism and rescue the concept of socialism. He didn't speak yet about socialism of the 21st century. He spoke again about socialism at the World Social Forum in January 2005, that is, just a few weeks later. He once again says that capitalism is not the solution for our people, that we have to build socialism, but at the same time he said that we had to reinvent socialism. It cannot be the kind of socialism we saw in the Soviet Union. We must not think about state capitalism, because if that happened, we will fall in the same distortion of the Soviet Union did. Chavez suggests that we must go down a road which is not the capitalist road, and that is should be a socialism. But he immediately warned that it's not the socialism that we know. It is in the fourth Social Debt Summit in 25 February 2006 that Chavez used the term 21st century socialism for the first time. At that meeting, they were analyzed the inherited problems that we have in Latin America, the problems that cause most suffering to our people. And he said, we cannot solve this problem with capitalism. We have to move on to a different system. So then he says, we have to invent 21st century socialism. It is true that Chavez brought the term 21st century socialism into common usage, but there is a lot of discussion about who first used it. And as far as I know, the first person to use it was a Chilean, a compatriot and also a friend of mine, the sociologist Tomás Mulián. In 2000, he wrote a book called 21st Century Socialism, and somewhat tongue-in-cheek he added the fifth way, to sort of distance it from all the other ways.
Es interesante esto porque como chileno él había vivido como yo viví.
This is interesting because as a Chilean, he, like me, had lived through the experiences of Salvador Allende. We must not forget that experience. It was the first experience in history in which a government elected freely by the people in a bourgeois democratic system decided to set the goal of a peaceful transition to socialism. This caused repercussions all over the world. Everyone was looking at Chile because in 1970 people in Europe were already very aware of the weakness, the mistakes that existed in Soviet socialism. It was a peaceful way to socialism, but unfortunately I cannot stop here to make an analysis of what it meant. All I can do is to tell you that, as you know, that experience was defeated. It lasted only 3 years. It was defeated by a military coup. What did we learn from that experience? First, that if we want to move peacefully to socialism, we have to rethink socialism. It cannot be the Soviet model. We had learned that we had to rethink socialism, and this quite before Chavez. Second, that the peaceful way implies, among other things, extensive pluralism and the need of a broad support of the people. It couldn't be done with just a section of the population, with the most radical, the most revolutionary. Allende already knew that his socialism has to be different, and he used to say that Chilean socialism has to be socialism with red wine and empanadas, a typical Chilean food. This was a way of saying we have to build the kind of socialism which is specific to our Chilean traditions, to our idiosyncrasy, and to build it with the challenge of doing through a peaceful transition. I'm going to spend more time later on all that this transition means. So I'm going to leave things a little unfinished for a possible new talk on what exactly happened in Chile with this socialism. Nevertheless, I want to put forward that one cannot attribute Allende's defeat only to a military coup. The left also made mistakes that contribute to the defeat.